Welcome to the Tinkercats video gallery. Today I'm going to show you how to stamp across a couple of layers and make this beautiful layered card. And I'll be working with the Vignette Floral Grunge strips and the Vignette Trendy feathers from Stamplorations. So I made this card just to show you, and so I've stamped across a couple of layers, but unfortunately I messed it up slightly here by getting a splash on it, and it damaged the card a little bit. So, but that means I also got one to show you as to where I'm going with what I'm going to show you today. Right, let's put that to one side. I've already prepared my base card here, which is black, but you can always use another colour. All you need is a contrasting colour to what the ones that you're using. So I've got my white card already for the base layer here, so that's done. Then you need another couple of pieces of white card and another couple of pieces of black card, and maybe if you use black, maybe you want to put some white on the inside. I haven't put my white in as yet because I'm going to stamp on that as well. Now what I've done here is I've prepared my top layers, the two, just the white card. So I've aligned them and I put a piece of low-tack masking tape across so that they're not going to move when I'm stamping. And so I've aligned them using my ruler so that they are sort of pretty much in the center. So right, let's get started. I've got my stamp already on here, and we're going to stamp this with Stampin'Up Regal Rose. So I'm just going to ink this up. Right, and I'm going to go about here. And this works best with thinner card, because what happens is when you stamp across a couple of pieces of card, as we well know from masking, you always end up with a little gap sort of between. Now if you've got thin card, that gap is actually quite narrow, and that's when you can get away with having a contrasting card as a narrower strip, a narrower border around. Otherwise you'll have to make it bigger and wider. So I can show you another card where I've actually done that, and talk about this later as to how to rescue things when things don't go to plan. Right, the next one is Daffodil Delight. We're going to stamp that with. And that goes right above. And press down, especially over where the join is. Here we go. And then the last one will be with the Tempting Turquoise. Just making sure that my stamp is dry, because I quickly wiped it off in between with baby wipes, and they always leave, if you, well, they have to be alcohol free, so they always leave it a bit damp. So we got the Tempting Turquoise here, and that goes above the yellow. Right. Now, as you all well know, I have reorganized my craft room, and I'm actually sort of crafting now in the room where I do work, where I do my therapies, which is just a sort of like a nice, wonderful space. A bit messy at the moment still. I need to tidy up. It's not quite finished yet, but I thought I just have to get a video in. The gremlins, the card making gremlins, have moved in over the last couple of days, and I literally been making cards and I have been throwing them away. So that for me is, I need to do something else. And here I am making this lovely video for you. Now the next one is, once you've gone this far, Now I'm going to stamp my feather somewhere about here. So I want it to be as close to the bottom edge as possible, but I also don't want it to go outside the 3 strips I've just stamped. And what I find for what is best when you stamp over dye ink, you might want a slight pigment ink. Now I quite like Versa colour. It's not as heavy as sort of Versa fine. So I've got some black Versa colour ink here. The Versa fine, I think, it's got slightly stickier in a way, which is quite good if you have a heavily coloured background. But using Versa fine is fine too. I mean, it's just me. I like to use what I got, and I've got the Versa colour one. Right, so this goes about here, because I need to leave enough room for my sentiment to go on. So with this one being a slower drying ink, you can actually really sort of adjust it as well as you sort of can in a way. Right, so let's go for it. So this is the smallest one of the 4 feathers that you get with the Trendy feathers set from Stamploration. And I thought, because it looks relatively delicate, the card, with the narrow borders that I've left with the black, I didn't want to have anything that was too heavy. So here we go. So you can see there is like a little border here and here. Now that will be covered with my with the borders that I have with the black card. So I'm now just going to quickly get my insert out, ink my stamp up again, because I'm just going to stamp the feather on the inside with the sentiment really. So if I do that, it's that's the feather done. And next I'm getting the sentiment out. Which I got here. Now this is the whole set. Now this is slightly discoloured because I've been working with some ready ones, but it doesn't affect the quality of the stamp or your stamping. It's just red has got a sort of, the pigments, they seem to get into everything. If you ever work with red ink, you know it's dead difficult to get off your hands afterwards. So worse than any other colour. Right, so I'm just going to put down just a note, and I'm going to stamp it very close to the edge here. Right, so that goes here. Okay. And it doesn't matter that it's possibly a little bit off, because the black frame, the black border will blend it in. So I'm just going to pop that over here. There you go. So that's all the stamping done. And now we're going into layering it all up. Right, let's get the masking tape off. This low-tack masking tape is really, really good. It's by a company called Fix-It Craft, and you can reuse it actually quite well. It's fabulous. I use it a lot, even just for masking up little strips if I'm stamping and then want to just leave a border somewhere. Right, that's that. So I'm just going to quickly, I'm not going to pop this in, you know how to do that on the inside. So let's turn these over and add some sticky to it. I've got to cut that again in a sec because I've gone over there. So let's just add some. I do like to stick things down properly, so I'm going to add another one in the middle, but that's just me. You don't have to. But I find that double-sided tape, if I use the thin card, which is basically, it's just normal inkjet printer card, about, I think it's about 160 grams or something, that it's best to, rather than using glue, to use some tape, because the glue tends to buckle it up a bit much if you don't spread it out that well. So the card isn't heavy enough to take the wetness of the glue, basically. So that is one. So I've got my little bits here. Come on. Let's just peel that back. So what I tend to do is when I work with double-sided tape, I sort of always peel it half back or near enough, sometimes less depending on the piece. But what I want to get to is so that I have access to all my strips when I turn it over on the outside. Now what you can do now is you can actually align the bottom, where you still got your backing on, quite well with your base that you want to have as the border. And this is especially important if you sort of have only a very narrow border like I've left it. Can you see this? So if you are quite happy that it's relatively central, then press down and hold it down once you pull first the inner strips out and then the outer ones. Right, so that's pretty good. That is number one. And let's do number two. If I now could just find my double-sided tape. Oh, it's here. So, right, let's go next. Yeah, you can see it's a relatively thin card, so it does bleed through quite easily. But I do like using it for because it distributes the ink quite well. And it's also sort of, I got a printer that doesn't really take card or thicker card. So this one here is also quite good for as an alternative for digi stamps, which you want to colour with sort of the likes of pro markers or your Copics or something. You just have to layer it up on something else because it does bleed through a bit. So for this one here, I think I'll be doing 4 strips down. This is a fresh roll of double-sided, and what always happens with double-sided, it always gets things stuck to the side. So bear with me, I have to pull them off. Just snipping this off again a bit, because I've gone over on the side again. Right, and again. So with 4, I'm doing the top one just a little bit, and then the next one here, and usually I just bend it over like that because it keeps it better in place later on when I come to layer it down. Right, that's that. Okay, so if I do this, this and this, so I got them, then I can hold these here. Right, and again I'm aligning it. So this looks about right. Just see at the top, at the sides here. Yeah, let's go for it. So hold it down and first the inner one and then the outer one. Press down and then the next one, inner and the outer strip. So the inner strip I always fold like is lower to my outer one, so that's the first one you naturally then would come to pulling out. Now for the next step, I'm not going to use double-sided tape because I'm going to use glue, because glue always gives me a bit of an ability to move something into position because it doesn't adhere immediately. Now, what you got here now, you got this as an anchor point, and you also got the bottom of the feather as an anchor point to align it, which I think is quite good to have 2 points, because otherwise it might be quite easy to go off if it were just going on the side here, because that looks as if it is lined up, but it's not lined up at the bottom and you're going wonky. So if you got 2 anchor points, then you can much better see where it is going to go. So this is about what it would need to look like when it's ready. And I mean, if you want to do this technique, it's probably best to start with an image that is relatively easy, that is quite clear and not too intricate to use. It sort of where you've got the very clear lines and it's not too fussy and it's relatively easy to spot where you need to align it. So that's my glue on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to still have it at an angle and get it as close to where I need it to go before really sticking it down. Can you see this? So you got the feather going nicely up that way. And then all you need to do is when you stick it down, you need to make sure that you hold it in position. So that is one. And this now sort of goes, oops, it just goes pretty central onto my base card. So I'm going to use glue again. Now, if you want to be absolutely perfect, I mean, you could do it something like this towards one side, but I quite like them sort of centered. So it's something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to pop some glue on again. When I put glue on, I'm not going absolutely to the edge unless I really need to, because the glue always moves and squishes about a bit. So just doing it approximately is best. And then you can sort of, because if as you move it also on your card, it gets to the edges anyway. So this is about right. So if I then just go in and press it down. So that is one bit. And my inside I could still do, well, I'm not going to do too badly. So the inside is going to go sort of just like this to show you. That will be the card. Now, I said I was going to talk to you also about rescuing. So I made this card here a while ago, and as you see, sort of my borders are wider. And actually, when I came to stamp, I had inked up this stamp with markers, so the coloured one, to give it a bit of a colourful background, but I've forgotten. And this can happen when you do markers to do something here. Hence, I stamped a black flower across. So if your image doesn't fully fit, you can always, if you have something lighter at the background, you stamp something else across, and then it looks like as being on purpose. You can see a little bit here where it hasn't taken, but I haven't stamped properly, and that black flower just across there just changes it. Okay, so this is my card. This is what I wanted to share with you. I'm going to stick this down later. I don't want to go much longer on with the little video. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and happy crafting. All the details, all the measurements will be on my Tinkercards blog. That's http://www.tinkercards.com. tinkercards.blogspot.com. Okay, happy crafting. Bye and see you soon.